Heyo everyone, this is Risemonger signing on. Well, we're here. 500 subscribers. Wow. I never imagined I would get this far. I was surprised when I got 100 subscribers, let alone 500. So, first of all, thank you guys all for the love and support you've given me. It really is a great feeling to see your guys' lovely comments. It does give me so much motivation to do more. Anyway, let's get the mushy stuff out of the way for now and kinda address the elephant that's in the room. By now, I'm sure you guys are aware of the changes YouTube is making to their terms and conditions, in which if your videos are misinterpreted as child-friendly or not, you may get fined. As you can imagine, this terrifies me, as the future of my channel is on the line, since, I'd like to be able to earn money off of the things I create. That's what the whole point of YouTube was supposed to be, right? Creative people promoting their creative things? But no, we gotta think about the kids. Okay, yeah, fine, I get it. You don't want to expose young children to potentially harmful things on the internet, but I'm sure there are better ways of doing this. I've seen evidence of the YouTube bot already deeming TF2 specific content as non-advertiser friendly, so you can see where I'm going with this. Yeah, so I'm concerned for the future of my channel, as the last thing I want to do is abandon what I have worked so hard for already, especially with this milestone I've reached. But I'm preaching to the choir, and there really isn't a whole lot I can do except hope it'll get better before, I get to that point where I'd be considered for monetization. That's all I can hope for. In the meantime, let's put this topic on the back burner and get to the meat of this video. Now, you guys might have remembered I made an announcement video not too long ago talking about a Q&A, and since then, I've received a good number of questions. But let's not waste much more time and dive right in. These are in no particular order, and most of the questions I got were from YouTube, and only a few from Discord. So let's start nice and simple with a question from David MacDonald. Just some origin information. Where did you get/why do you use Risemonger as your name? How did you discover/get into TF2? Now, the origin of my name is a bit of a roundabout. At one point, I wasn't called Risemonger. This is going back to when I first started to get my niche on the internet, where I was uploading my artwork for the very first time on DeviantArt 12 years ago. 12 years? Jeez. Now I feel old. Anyway, at that point, I was seriously into the Halo franchise. I still am to an extent, but I'm not as invested thanks to Halo 5. But that's a story for another time. I really liked the alien species in that game known as the Elites, so I decided to call myself Sangeli Riser, after the true name of said species. Years went by, and after falling somewhat out of love with Halo, I figured it was no longer appropriate to keep such a name, so I wanted to change it. But I'm bad at coming up with names, so I didn't know what at first. Until I decided to roll with the Riser part of the name, and Risemonger was just a random thing I just kept thinking about. I don't know, maybe I saw a sign that advertised fishmongers or ironmongers while I was out shopping or something. So I googled it, and the result made me laugh so much because I thought the description fit me so well. As for the second half of that question, that fits in with Will Treaty's question. What inspired you to become a pyromane? Do you love his/her personality? I've known about TF2 for many years, of course. You can't get by on the internet without seeing at least one meme from it. But I rediscovered it on my own about 3 or so years ago. I was browsing through YouTube when I found a certain video playlist. You know the ones. The Meet the Team series, and I instantly fell in love with all the characters. But of course, only one video really hit home for me. Brought joy to my soul and made me giddy to have seen it. Yep, the one and only Meet the Pyro. First time I watched it, I couldn't stop laughing, and I'm pretty sure I watched it at least 50 times after that. And each time was as good as the last. Now at this point, I didn't have a computer of my own, so I couldn't play TF2. But I looked up the game on YouTube, finding out as much as I could about the mechanics, finding SFM works, etc., until I eventually earned enough money to buy my own PC. As for Pyro himself, it wasn't so much the personality that caught my attention, adorable as it is, but it was the aspect of his state of mind. What I mean by this is I became fascinated with his mental state. I began to theorize my own interpretation of him, what background he had, why he hides behind the mask, among other things. Things I could go into more detail another time if you guys want, but it was the sheer fascination of the ambiguity of his character that attracted me to him. Also, I like fire. I really like fire. Anyway, I've played Pyro since day one, and I've not put him down since. Most of the next question by Insania has already been answered, but this part, what do you think about the last update on the class? Well, if we're talking major update, the changes made in Jungle Inferno admittedly took some getting used to. I used to think that the changes to Afterburn and Air Blast would be detrimental to gameplay and make things more difficult, but frankly, I found them pretty easy to adapt to. The physics of the Air Blast function makes a lot of sense in my mind. The Afterburn changes, I barely even noticed, along with the tighter particles. All I've learned is that I have to be more precise on where I aim the flames, particularly after the changes from the Blue Moon update. The encouragement for pyros to aim and actually think about where their flames are going is overall much better. And I'm pretty sure I don't need to mention the extinguisher changes. After Blue Moon, the weapon changed from my least used melee to my favourite. Enough said. Talking about Air Blast, this leads to a question by Aram on the Discord. How did you get so good at Air Blast, and how/where can a newbie pyro learn to be as good as you at timing reflex? I got to this level by many hours of practice. I knew Air Blast existed before I even played the game, so I had the advantage there, but there is a difference between knowing something's there and knowing how to use it. I learned how to time my reflex from dying. A lot. For newbie pyros, I'd suggest that you get a feel for how wide your Air Blast cone is first. I talked about this in my first Pyros Playground, shameless plugin, where you can start out by using Air Blasts on your teammates first when they're on fire. By doing this, you can learn the width of the cone as well as how to compensate for lag or buggy interp. Now most people would tell you to learn to reflect, you go to TR_walkway, but I believe you learn a lot more from actual players than you would from predictable bots. So hop into a casual server. Heck, go to 2Fort if you want to, there's no shame in that. It's where I learned how to play. Now, most of what Gecko Nerd asks here I've already answered. Was there somebody that you watched for pyro advice when you chose to main pyro, or was everything you know about the class self-taught? I'll go into a little more detail. When I was watching YouTube videos, I did find your mandatory how to play this and that type of video. But there was something I found that started a massive spiral that really got me into the class. I found Mr. Paladin's channel, and it was through his tutorial series that I became a better pyro. Also, I picked up a few spy tricks from him that I implemented into my own playstyle. Everything else though, pretty much self-taught. I just jumped straight into casual servers and WM1'd myself to success. Speaking of WM1, Piss Assist asks, thoughts on the WM1 problem? I don't think it's a problem in all honesty. I think it's a viable strategy. And yeah, you can call me biased, but the thing is, WM1 takes more skill to pull off than people think. Seriously think about it, you can't just run straight at a heavy, buffing out flames and expect to come out on top. You'd get ripped to shreds in an instant, especially if the heavy is ready for it. It takes careful planning and positioning to take on that heavy. You have to think to yourself, how many bullets does that heavy have? What minigun is he using? How quickly can he rev up? Is he revved up right at the moment? How experienced is this player? Will I be able to take him down with just my flamethrower alone? And on top of all that, does he have a medic? All of these questions are raised in the split second you see that heavy coming, and you have to have them answered even faster if you want to win the fight. All the heavy sees is the execution, which results in him being burned to death because he wasn't ready for us. And that results in a WM1 callout. All things considered, Pyro is a pretty weak class for the most part, and as a result, Pyro mains have learnt to be creative. Talking about Pyro mains, Mr. Payne, a fellow Pyro main, asks, in terms of strategy, how do you like to play Pyro, and what weapons would you use for that playstyle? I like to be a jack of all trades. I've used all of Pyro's weapons and done all types of strategy with various levels of success. The strategy I like the most is where I'm being aggressive with the rest of the team, where I can use them to flank around the opponents and force them to turn around to make them more vulnerable for the rest of the team to finish off. It's a suicidal strategy, but it's really fun when you pull it off, especially if the enemy is less than prepared and have no time to react to your sudden appearance. And for that type of strategy, I bring along with me my own trusty loadout, the Bone Crucible, the Backup Plan, and the Reverse Fireman, because it has the perfect combination of aggression and defensive capability. Talking about loadouts, I Has No Tomato, another fellow Pyromane, asks, favourite and least favourite pyro weapon? Funnily enough, Kira Caroso asked something vaguely similar to this, along with what loadouts to use/have teammates use and fight against. So let's answer them both. As I said before, my favourite loadout is the all-reliable stock, and extinguisher, but I'm partial to all sorts of different and wacky loadouts. Though if I have to choose my least favourite in each category, it'd probably have to be Backburner, Man Melter, and the stock Fire Axe and reskins. Purely for the reason that the Backburner is such a finicky mistress, and refuses to be clear on what is and isn't a back. Never mind the huge air blast cost, and that usually wouldn't bother me if I didn't rely on it so much, which I do. For the other weapons, I say the Man Melter purely for the reason it's my least used flare gun. Not that I don't like it or anything, it's pretty useful in its own right, but I've never really had a moment in game where I thought to myself, yes, this situation calls for the Man Melter, you know? And the Fire Axe, well, that speaks for itself. I don't know a single Pyromane that uses a stock Fire Axe unironically, unless they're new. And while the Lollichop is quirky and allows you to go to Pyroland without the use of Pyrovision goggles, it's kinda pointless in my personal opinion, as I don't really like playing with the Pyroland filters on. It distracts me way too much and ends up being irritating. Now for teammates, I couldn't care what loadouts they used. It's casual mode, they can play what they want, as long as they remembered the objective. But as for loadouts to fight against, I enjoy fighting other Pyros, because there's a high adrenaline rush in a Pyro 1v1, which all comes down to who has the better loadout, better movement, better aim. Yeah, all the classes have that, but I find Pyro fights to be more enjoyable. What I hate fighting against are snipers. Good God, when snipers come into the equation, the fight is very one-sided, and I'm forced to be as creative as humanly possible in order to avoid their sightline, force them to miss, get close to them, avoid getting smacked with their high chance of melee crits, and to top it all off, avoid getting quickscoped. There are just so many variables that are not in my favour that makes fighting snipers not very fun for me at all. Oh, and don't even get me started on the danger shield. No, really, don't. Moving on. Jerry L. Winston asks, how would you rank the mercs by how much you play them? How tall are you? Is there anything you do in real life that helps you get better at Pyro? Well, considering I don't really play much of the other mercs, I'm not sure how I'd rank them as such. I suppose in terms of fun, I'd probably list them as such. First and foremost is Pyro, obviously, because he's the one I'm best at, and the variety with his many playstyles allows me to be free with what I can do. Next would be Scout, since running around really fast has its appeal, and if I practiced a bit more with him, I reckon I'd be decent enough. Then there's Spy. Now, let me level with you guys. I'm really, really bad at Spy, but I still find fun in hiding in random parts of the map, calling out voice lines while disguised to confuse the heck out of the enemy. Yeah, I'd be one of those Spy mains. You know, the ones you commonly find in 2.4 who terrorize free-to-play engineers with the cloak and dagger. Yeah, I'd be one of those for sure. Below Spy is Soldier. I know how to rocket jump, but I can't quite pull it off. I know that if I practiced with him a bit more, I'd have a ton of fun just flying around the map. That, and it'd help me with my detonator gameplay. Medic is next. Not so much that I find him fun, but more for the fact that I play him just to help my team out of huge binds that I can't do with Pyro alone. He's stressful to play, but when you pull off a successful run, there is that feeling of satisfaction that you help to pull it off. Next, Sniper. Now, I know I harped on about how I hated fighting snipers before, and honestly I can see the appeal of hitting that perfect headshot. The very few times I've managed it, it is highly satisfying. But, I don't know, I still don't find it very appealing to sit in the back line attempting to click on heads all game. Maybe I'm just biased, I don't know. Heavy is next, purely for the reason that while I do like the added benefit of extra health and damage, I just feel so bogged down by his slower speed. Yeah, I don't do as much damage as Pyro, but I have much more freedom than being heavy. Engineer is pretty low down for me, mainly because I'm not very good at being a purely defensive person. I know I get roped into defense a lot as Pyro, but I have so much freedom as opposed to Engineer. More than half the time, I feel like I'm just sitting there waiting for the action to come to me, and when it does, none of my team is anywhere to be seen, and I cannot keep the sentry up, and I just get steamrolled over. So, I don't enjoy Engineer. Demo, on the other hand, is by far my least played class. I don't know what it is about him, but I just cannot get into his playstyle. I know he can be very powerful because I've come across a lot of demos who are amazing, but I don't know, something about him just doesn't feel right for me. So that's how I personally would rank the mercs. In terms of the other questions though, how tall am I? I'm tall enough to reach the cookie jar, let's put it that way. And is there anything I do in real life that helps me with Pyro? Well, I'm great at barbecues. Just keep the lighter fluid away from me. Rex97 asks, so I'm a demo main and successfully got behind the air blasting lines of my enemy. Long story short, do you think demo mains that know what they're doing can be a nightmare to fight against? I suppose it depends on what type of demo man really. If it's your bog standard demo, I can fight against them just fine, and those demos who can land their pipes perfectly, I highly respect. Demo knights on the other hand are a whole different can of worms, because they are pretty unpredictable thanks to TF2's laggy interp. Not saying that they're hard to fight against, but once they're air blasted into a corner, there isn't really much they can do. But it is slightly irritating when the server decides the demo that is 5 feet away is actually close enough to chop your head off. But that's a complaint I have with the game programming, not the demo man himself. It isn't their fault. What is their fault, of course, is what you also mentioned. Sticky spammers. Now, I believe sticky spammers are worse than WM1ers, since the damage is much higher and it can be, well, spammed easily. If you ask me, there needs to be a system in place that really forces the sticky launcher to be a truly defensive weapon, not just be a crappier pipe launcher. Like say, it takes longer for the stickies to become active, or reduce the firing rate. I don't know, I'm not a demo main. I'm just sharing what I've experienced on the other side of the equation. Bottom line, I get why people complain, and even I've gotten annoyed by it, but I'm not saying that using the sticky launcher makes you a terrible demo man. Far from it. In fact, I highly respect demo mains who cleverly hide their sticky traps and successfully lure people into them. Another Discord question here by Jonathan D. Do you actively switch between classes when your team is in need of a medic, or any other class for that matter, or do you stay true to Pyro? For the most part, I stay true to Pyro. All the different styles of play I find are sufficient enough for me to get the job done. Having said that, I do get those situations where I need to switch to medic or engineer, though I wouldn't say I'm entirely good at it. Just good enough to be able to get the job done, and at the end of the day, that's all you really need, right? Now, since I am a quote-unquote true Pyro main, Sir Perry has asked an interesting question. Mind helping me out for an actual in-depth remake of how to play Pyro video? Sure, I wouldn't mind it. I'm more than happy to help out anyone who needs it. Whether it be for a collab, talking about certain weapons or techniques, or even just helping with Pyro-specific contracts, I'm more than happy to do so. Provided I have the time, of course. Now, I've answered most of what the Black Dragon asks, but the last part, what killstreak kit do you have on your Aussie? This one? I believe it's a professional killstreak kit that was gifted to me by my good friend Thalas Octavian. It is a villainous violet sheen with a cerebral discharge killstreaker. And yes, it's Heyo's own because of course it is. The real one. Are you real though? What really is real? They ask, what are your thoughts about the Dead Ringer? Overpowered or does it need a buff? Overpowered. In all seriousness though, I've never really had a problem with the Dead Ringer, even before its nerf. Why? Because it does 0 damage. Oh, but Rise, it was spammable, and it was impossible to kill the spy, I hear people yelling. But the thing is, I couldn't really care less. As far as I'm concerned, a spy under the effects of a Dead Ringer is a spy not doing their job. And a spy not doing their job is as good as dead to me. I mean, sure, they could run off with their tails between their legs to collect some metal over and over, but if I'm constantly thinking, spy, 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 then that spy isn't going to get anything done while I'm alive. So, no, I don't think it was overpowered. Spammable, yes, but fine for me to deal with. Nowadays, I do think the nerf was a bit harsh. Not being able to pick up metal packs is a huge misstep, but I can see why people are happy about it. Personally, I think it should have been reverted to how it was in the gunmetal update, or at the very least, get rid of the fire resistance so pyros can still track spies down, since, you know, pyro is supposed to be spies counterclass and all. Speaking of updates, Angie Dawn asks, what do you think the next update will most likely be about? Bold of you to assume we'll be getting an update. You think I'm joking, but since the last major update was over 2 years ago, I'm not holding my breath. Having said that though, I have two thoughts based off what I would like to be in the next update and what will likely be in it. So I'd really like the game to be fixed up better. Like, I mean really fixed from top to bottom. Glitches and exploits taken out, interp to work properly, better latency, well-balanced weapons, and oh yeah, a better anti-cheat system! But really, all Valve is likely to do is collect together some community-made maps, cosmetics and effects, throw them in the game, and spend months upon months of fixing the new bugs and glitches they will cause, or ignore them completely. And you know what, with the recent news that's been going around Twitter recently, I wouldn't be surprised if nothing will happen anyway. Okay, listen, I love TF2 and it's a good and fun game, but good god, Valve has a very terrible management system and or very lazy employees. Like, how hard is it to have 1 or 2 programmers updating the game and keeping it running smoothly? Seriously. Okay, all ranting aside, that's basically the long and short of what I'd like. Moving on. Jon von Horn, great name by the way, asks, what is your opinion on this year's Scream Fortress? It's alright, for the most part. Yeah, most of it is copy and paste from last year, though the idea of letting the players play Scream Fortress before the official update dropped was a great one. I wasn't that interested in the new unusual effects, and most of the hats weren't that interesting. Except for the shark head for the pyro. Holy heck, that shark head is amazing. But I really enjoyed the map Laughter. It's the most fun I've had in Scream Fortress for a very long time. Precipice, on the other hand, hurt me. That map was pretty poorly designed as far as I'm concerned, but you can't exactly blame the map makers, as that map had been made way back when TF2 had less maps if I'm remembering correctly. Glitch Artist asks, why do you use the world cam in first person and how do you enable it? I used first person world cam because I've always been a sucker for being able to see your character's model in first person. When you think about it, there's something so undeniably creepy about looking down and seeing no body there. It just makes me feel like I'm a camera on a stick as opposed to an actual character. There's just a certain level of charm to being able to see your character's body. It makes them feel more alive. You know what I'm saying? Also, especially in terms of pyro, the first person world cam makes it so the weapons are less visible on your screen, allowing you to see a whole lot more. And yeah, I know there are commands for that in the normal view, but I just like how much less the weapons are visible, and once again, makes me feel as though I'm actually holding a flamethrower. Oh, and also, I've been hearing that people are having issues with seeing through the flame particles when they play pyro, though I've noticed nothing of the sort. So I'm making an educated guess that the first person world cam allows me to see past the particles better. Either that or my pyro mad mind becomes one with the flame. Anyway, the only problem with that is I can't inspect the weapons. But hey, I never use that function anyway. As for how to activate it, obviously you need to have your console enabled, and just type into it cl_first_person_users_world_model space 1. Dead simple. Now we're moving on to the more simple questions, so I'll quickly go over these in the interest of time. Yowza Buckaroo asks, do you own any animals? If you do, what kind of animal is it? I have 3, but only one is officially mine. My parents own 2 dogs, Sherry and Fudge, and I own this beautiful girl, Pushkin. Look at her! Isn't she adorable? Xavier Westcott asks, doot, ye or nee? Siremonger asks, does Sire need to grow up? Depends on what you've done. What did you do? Come on, you know you can tell me. Mawa asks, are you a Pootis Pyromane or just Pyromane? I am Duck. Gone with Phone asks, cake or death? I think I'll take the chicken. And that's it. Yeah, I think we're done. Well then, so allow me to thank everyone who submitted their questions for this video. It was a ton of fun going over all of this, and I hope it's given you a bit more of an insight on me. But other than that, here's to another 500 subs. If YouTube doesn't kill itself, that is. In any case, thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, this is Risemonger, signing off.